Hello, you're listening to Vanessa at The Life Sutra. I am a GAPS practitioner and very, very passionate fermenter, and I want to tell you about how you can heal your child's eczema naturally. 25% of children in the UK are now suffering from eczema, and if you're anything like I was, you're a little bit lost about where to go and what to do. The only real solution out there are very, very strong steroid creams that only really get rid of the problem short term because they're not dealing with the root cause. I only used them once and it went for a couple of days and the eczema came straight back for my daughter. So how do you do it? You have what's called in your body two different types of immunity, Th1 and Th2. Th1 immunity is dealing with the triggers in the environment, so things like pollen, dust mite, chemicals, and what you need to have that fully functioning is a really healthy gut. And a healthy gut is totally proliferated with healthy bacteria. And there are two different ways that you can create that gut flora of healthy bacteria. One is purchasing high strength therapeutic grade probiotics. GAPS would recommend something like BioCult, but there's also ones on the market like Prescript Assist. But honestly, that gets really expensive. The other way is to use fermented foods, and that's what I'm so passionate about. All you need for fermented foods to do the simplest form is something called sauerkraut. You need one cabbage, a mason jar and some sea salt. And it really is very simple, very inexpensive and very effective. In fact, 16 ounces of sauerkraut is as effective as 8 bottles of therapeutic grade probiotic. So you really are getting a proper max strength, nature's version of healing. So I would encourage you all to try fermented foods. I will take you through a few of the other triggers for eczema. You really need to think about what the triggers are within the environment, because we are bombarded with chemicals in the environment today, from cleaning products to beauty products. I'd even think about what you put on the eczema, because anything you put onto the skin is ultimately going to go straight into the bloodstream. So for example, for my daughter, I would mix a little bit of coconut oil with a little bit of raw honey, apply it onto the eczema before bed, which is normally the time when it flares up the most, and that would soothe it and stop it itching so much at night time. But there are plenty of recipes for homemade beauty products and homemade cleaning products on the internet as well. The other things that I would consider are elimination of some of the foods that trigger gut problems in the diet. So it's about cleaning up the diet. Dairy and eggs are two of the biggest triggers for childhood eczema. You may be able to have it in fermented form. Most children can have fermented dairy, but the problem with the dairy that we consume today is that it's pasteurized. So it's treated at high temperatures and it's basically dead milk. So you've killed all the natural probiotic goodness in raw milk. So initially I would think about taking out dairy and eggs. The other item of food, the other food group that I would consider taking out is any gluten-containing grains. So that's your bread and your pasta, your rye, your barley, your wheat, because those are really, really hard to digest, and for most children that's creating more problems in the gut. There are ways that you can ferment those grains that make the gluten easier for the body to digest, but initially I would remove all gluten-containing grains. And lastly, another food group that was a problem in our family are what's called the nightshades, which includes tomatoes, peppers, aubergines and potatoes. Now that won't happen for every child out there, but that was certainly a problem for my daughter, so you might want to consider removing that as well. That might sound like a lot, but actually what you're left with is a really rich, nutrient-dense diet full of vegetables, fruit, meat, fish, eggs, or eggs if they're not a problem, but nuts and seeds. So there's a whole broad spectrum of foods that you can make, and you can even make baked goods. So I would make my daughter cakes and biscuits from almond flour and coconut flour, so she really never did go without. And lastly, the other thing I would really consider is your levels of vitamin D. Many of us are vitamin D deficient because the moment the sun comes out, we put so much suntan cream on our children. And obviously I'm not advocating anyone burning, but when the sun is not at its strongest, make sure your children are exposed to some sunlight. You have a receptor cell on every cell within the body for vitamin D, so it really will benefit healing and help heal the eczema. If it's winter time and there's not much sunlight about, consider adding some liver or some pork lard or some shellfish as well, because those are all high levels of all containing high levels of vitamin D. So really you want to be thinking about healing the gut, removing the triggers in your personal environment, eliminating and cleaning up the diet, adding vitamin D, and please have a go at making some fermented foods, because they are so simple, so easy to make, and they really are a wonderful, wonderful tasting food. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about this. Please add your comments. Next week I'm going to be teaching you how to make sauerkraut, so I hope you will join me. Thanks for listening.